skip through many of them super quick, so we won't take too long. Normally about an hour, depending on how many questions we get. But we're here to talk about the council elections and what that's all about. I'll talk a bit about what it means to be a councillor, an elected member, the mayor, and then we'll get into the do's and don'ts of the election process. Talking about this election stuff is not the most exciting topic in the world sometimes, so I'm going to try and keep it relatively entertaining. My style is quite informal. I do swear a lot, so I'll try not to swear on the live stream. So please just keep things informal. If you've got a question, just sing out at any point. We're trying to keep it pretty casual. So there's me, Warwick Lamp, work for a company called elections.com based in Christchurch. Shaney over here is Council's Deputy Electoral Officer. Shaney is the person who's the eyes and ears on the ground, whom candidates will deal with when it comes time to put in your nominations. So this is who we are, this is what I do. I've been doing elections since 1986, which is what, 36 years ago, which is a bit of worry, but it is what it is. So I've done lots of elections, dealt with lots of candidates, and so in that respect I think I have a pretty well developed bullshit radar. Sure, absolutely. Can just maybe pop your chair out of you if that helps a little bit. Just as long as I can see it though, you just need to come back a little bit this way if that's alright. Yep, great. So there's a list of all the councils that I work for, which is 6 regional councils and 45 district or city councils. So the same things that I say here today are the same things I say to all of these councils. I've got about 33 of these presentations to do over the next month or so. Same deal, same things. What's the unusual thing with this slide? What have I done wrong? 2 photos are the same. All right. Standing for council and what it's all about. The next few slides are what it means to be an elected member and what a council does. I'm not going to read every bullet point on every slide. I'll be here all night if we do that. I'll expect that you can read that okay. But these are the key things that a council does. Lots of legislation involved. Lots of different pieces of legislation, lots of regulations. Pretty well controlled process. And standing for council is a big deal. It is not a 5-minute job. It's certainly not to be taken lightly. And it can make quite a difference in the community. In the candidate handbook, which is over here, there's 3 or 4 pages about the skills and attributes that it takes to be an elected member. So please take the time to read that. So those are things that the council does as a collective, remembering that the council only has one employee, the CE. The CE then employs all the rest of the council staff. These are the key skills that elected members typically have. Lots of people stuff, lots of reading stuff, lots of meetings, lots of public speaking. So if you're not used to public speaking before you become an elected member, you soon will afterwards, because there's quite a lot of it. Key one there is that elected members have to think on a district-wide basis, not just about their patch or their ward, but about what's best for the community as a whole. So under the legislation, that's what being an elected member, being a mayor, being a councillor is all about. And there is a code of conduct that each council sets at the beginning of each term to determine how elected members should relate to each other. questions about that? Okay. What's involved? Lots of meetings, lots of workshops. 95 meetings in the last 12 months. So what's that? A couple a week. The mayor, it's a full-time job. Elected members 20 to 25 hours a week on average. During annual plan time every year, it might be 40 hours for a couple of weeks. So quite hard to roll around another job that you might have. If you've got some flexibility, we're working part-time, sure. Full-time job, be hard to do. So the reason for this slide is that so that you understand what's involved in being an elected member, so you don't get elected, rock up to the first meeting, don't know any of this stuff, find it all out and go, sure, that's going to be a struggle. Please be aware that there is lots of work involved, lots of reading of agendas. Agendas are electronic, but if they were paper, they'd be a couple hundred pages long. Might take 2 or 3 hours, sometimes 4 hours to read a council agenda before each meeting. Not a 5-minute job. But a really good, rewarding role when you put the effort in. Flexible working hours and going to council events, going to events on behalf of council, talking to people, sometimes doing presentations, sometimes speaking, quite often evening and weekend work to do that. Alright? Any questions about that? Sorry? No, it's not monitored? No. Correct? No monitoring in a formal sense, monitoring in a big picture sense within the community and then at the ballot box every 3 years. You'll probably be aware that, and I don't know whether this happened yet, Shani, but quite often the media around this time in the cycle will ask for the meeting attendance of the last 3 years. And quite often the media will publish how many meetings people have attended. Now, does that represent whether they're doing a good job or not? No, it just represents whether they're attending meetings. It doesn't measure the quality of what they do when they attend, but it is one metric. So, have you had requests for that yet? Not yet. Yeah. And that's what you get remunerated as the mayor. Pretty much a full-time job. Councillor, base of 35. Some committee chairs get a bit more than that depending on the committee structure. That changes each cycle. Okay. So as a lecture officer, this is the stuff that I do. I deal with the Local Electoral Act, which is quite prescriptive, quite black and white, and most things, although some things are shades of grey, but it's all about making sure that it's a level playing field for all candidates. But one thing I'm not responsible for is worrying about what candidates might say about each other in the campaigning space. So I don't care what you as candidates might put on social media or say in the paper. All of that stuff, interaction between candidates, is outside my sphere of caring. I'll talk a bit more about that a bit later. So these are the key dates. Nominations open 15th July. Signs can go up 8th of August, 2 months out. I deal with 45 councils and they all have different time frames of when their signs can go up. Some are 3 months, some are 2 months, some are 6 weeks, some are 4 weeks. 2 months here, the earliest date that signs can go up. close nominations 12 noon, Friday, 12th of August. 12 noon, not 12:01. 12 noon is absolute. If you're a minute late, too late. If you bring your nomination in at 11 o'clock on the last morning, I think something's not quite right about it. The nominator's not on the roll, or there's some details wrong, and you haven't got time to fix it, too late. So, and I'll say this many times, please make sure you get your nominations in early, don't leave them till the last minute. Then, of course, election day on the 8th of October. Okay, so these are the roles, these are things up for election this year. Mayor, 12 councillors. Change from last time is the 2 councillors in the Māori ward, and then Waikato Regional Council as well for the majority of the area. Where's Dave? Where's Dave? Oh, Dave's down the back. Dave Doggett from the Regional Council. He'll deal to a few slides near the end about the Regional Council. Okay, come on in. No worries. Okay. We get into the nitty-gritty of the do's and don'ts. So as I said before, nominations open 15th July, closed 12th of August. All your nomination documents have to be provided together. So you can't come in the first week, give us your nomination paper and say, oh, I'll bring my profile back next week. Everything in together all at the same time. Which is nomination paper, signed by the candidate, and then the nominator and seconder. Nominator and seconder have to be on the roll in the ward or the area in which you're standing. As a candidate, you can live anywhere in New Zealand. You don't have to live in Taupō. So we want nomination paper, candidate profile, if you're going to put in a profile, photo if you're going to put in a profile, evidence of New Zealand citizenship, passport, birth certificate, and your $200 deposit. Most candidates these days will do all that scan and email online. Last election we had about 80% of candidates did it electronically. But you can come in, bring it into the council office, come and see Janie, and she'll go through it at the time. Key thing there is, yes, we want to see evidence of New Zealand citizenship. Because if you're not a New Zealand citizen and you get elected, and it's found out later, you get turfed out, you have to have a by-election, go through the process again. Has happened. When you pay your deposit online, it's a good thing to, I think most online banking systems do this, allow you to turn that transaction into a PDF, print a PDF, bring it out, attach it to your nomination documents, so that the council can see when the deposit was made. So we've got to match it up in the banking system to make sure that it has in fact arrived. Okay. Without the $200, nominations are valid. Of course, checks not accepted these days. Remember that the nomination paper is a public document. Anyone can come and have a look at it. Physically have a look at it. Or take a copy of it. Some councils put the nomination papers themselves on their websites. I'm not a fan of that, so we don't do that here, but anyone can come and have a look at it. So the details that are on there are in the public domain. There's a box on the nomination paper to tick to say that your contact details will be in the public domain. We'll produce a candidate contact list after nominations are closed, put it on council's website, make it available to the media, make it available to advertising companies. People can ring you. You can, if you want, redact some of those details if you don't want them in the public domain. But of course, if you want people to contact you about your campaigning or what you're standing for, it's a bit hard to do if you don't put your contact details there. You can, on the voting papers, have commonly known name. Doesn't have to be your legal name that's on the electoral roll. I got a candidate in Brewer Pay who stood for a number of years, and his nickname is Rabbit. So he has on the voting paper, Rabbit, and he's in it. Not what his name is. Okay, no problem. That's what you're known by. Cool. And you can have what's called a party affiliation, the bottom line there, underneath your name on the voting paper. I'll show you some examples of this shortly. It's actually not really party affiliation, it's more a word for the parliamentary elections. You can have New Zealand First, come on in, New Zealand First, Labour, National, those sorts of things. But most people can have a tagline. I'll show you some examples shortly. Any questions about any of that stuff? Remember, everything in together. And please, not the last minute. So on a nomination paper, you do have to say if you are standing in any other elections. So if you were standing for the mayor and the council, on each nomination paper you have to say that you're standing in the other election. Because that gets printed at the top of your profile statement in the candidate profile booklet we send out with the voting papers. So that it's transparent, that people can see what other elections you're standing in. I've had it before, I had it last time in the Wairarapa where we had a guy who stood for the mayor of each of the councils. Carterton, South Wairarapa, Masterton. Stood in each mayoral race, so on each one he said, standing in these other elections. Not unusual. Not included in 150 words. The same with the other piece that we put on it that says my principal place of residence is in the council area, in the ward, or not. You have to state that on the nomination paper. It gets printed at the top of the profile so that it's transparent that people know where you live. Not a big drama, doesn't really matter. Not, but it's a requirement of the Act to say whether you live in the area or not. Not included in 150 words. I'll show you some examples of that shortly. So here's voting paper. It's from 2016, but ignore that. Excuse me while I wander away from the mic for a sec. Any questions about that? Remember, entirely optional, can be nothing, can be independent. Your choice. Maximum width, length is 38 characters, including spaces. So here's a nomination paper. Put her over here, so please grab those before you go, if you like. And that is the reverse, which has the details of the banking details in the middle section there of where to pay your deposit to and what to put on it so that we can find it. Any questions? Pretty straightforward? Good. So you've got to be New Zealand citizen, as I said before, you've got to be on the parliamentary electoral roll somewhere in the country, and you're nominated second, you've got to be on the roll in the area. Can't stand for the regional council and Taupo District Council at the same time, and you can't have an interest in a contract with council for more than 25k a year. Sometimes that will trip people up. That can be if you're a director or a shareholder of a company that has a contract with council for more than 25k. Shades of grey, this stuff can get a bit messy, but there's a whole lot of information about it on the Audit Office website, and they're the people that are the arbiters in this. If you do believe you have a contract that's with council more than that, you can get prior approval to standing as a candidate from the Audit Office by following what their guidelines are. So if you think you're in that situation, please go and have a look at the OAG website, check it out, make sure you comply before you put your nomination in. Can't be done retrospective. Okay. I said before, can stand for mayor and the council. Can stand in the Māori ward if you're on the general role, and vice versa. If you're a council employee, you've got to resign if you were elected. Questions about that? Can you withdraw? Not really. You used to be able to, but now you can withdraw your nomination up to the close of nominations. You can put it in the first week, change your mind, a couple of weeks later come back, take it out before close nominations. After close nominations, no. Unless you can provide me with a medical certificate to say that you are medically incapacitated and incapable of carrying out the role if you were elected. Does happen. I had a person last time that had a stroke the day after nominations closed, went and got a medical certificate a week or so later, withdrew as a candidate. Withdrew in time for me to withdraw their name from the voting papers. There's been quite a few instances in elections gone by where someone has passed away during the election period. If it's during the voting period, can't do anything about it, those votes just wasted. But if it happens early enough, then sometimes we have time to take the name off the voting papers, depending on when it is. It does happen. Any questions? Okay, profile statement on page 17 of the Canada Handbook. Have a good read of it. 150 words, not 151, 150 words about you and what you might be standing for. Not about someone else, not about the council CE, about what you are and what you're standing for. Although it's not my role to go in and check the details of what you might say about yourself. If you talk yourself up and say you've got degrees and so forth and haven't, not my problem, that's your problem. So I'm not going to check that. Can't comment on anyone else, on another candidate. After the close nominations, once we've got them all up to print, then we put all those candidate profiles up on council's website. Normally about 2 or 3 weeks before the voting papers go out, along with the candidate contact details. You can give us a photo. I'll show you an example of this shortly. Colour photo, taken within the last 12 months. Not one from 3 years ago when you last stood. Not one from 12 years ago when you last stood. Not one that's photoshopped. One that is a likeness, and we will check this. Okay. If we think the photo isn't a current likeness, then I'll have a chat with you and ask you to provide me another one. Which happens. Photo of yourself, head and shoulders shot, no pets, no hats, no dark sunglasses, no other people, no parrots, just a photo of yourself, please. And preferably as high a res as you can get. 300 dpi on your iPhone is all good. Please don't rip off a photo of yourself off your Facebook page, which is 72 dpi. That'll pixelate something terrible when we go to print it, and you'll look like a fuzzy bear. 300 dpi, please. If you gave us one that was too low res, I would come back and say, let's get another one and give you a really short time to get it done. Okay? So just take the time to get your photo done. First time, you can get it professionally taken, no problems. It doesn't have to be the photo that you have on your signs, campaigning material. You can use a photo on your hoardings from wherever you like. You can Photoshop it as much as you want. It doesn't have to be the same photo that you give me for the candidate profile stuff. Okay? There we go. There's a good example. Bright young chap, colour photo, proven, dedicated, real. It's my tagline. Sounds like me. Then the two lines, my principal place of residence is in the area I'm standing, and I'm also standing for another election, or not, and then into my 150 words. 150, max 150, not 151. We check this religiously. If you gave me a profile that was a few words over, I would look at it, combine the I am times, I have times, those sorts of things. But if you gave me one that was 160 words and I couldn't do that, I'd chuck it back to you and say, need another profile, thanks. But because of print deadlines, make it snappy, 24 hours, let's get on with it. So that's why I want you to put nominations in there, this weird time to check that before we get to the closing nominations. Make sense? Any questions? Campaigning, my favourite topic. Not. Right, campaigning. Probably aware, it's underway already. Can start any time. There's no restrictions as to when campaigning can start. On the social media, do pretty much anything you like. There's no rules around what you can and can't say, other than the usual rules of defamation apply. But no campaigning or electioneering in the council chambers. You can't come in here to a council meeting, sit down the back in the public area, and whip out a sign. Go, woo, vote for me. That's shown on council's live stream. Because council's live streaming audience is council's live streaming audience, not your audience, not the elected member's audience, not the mayor's audience. Just the same as an elected member can't turn up with a vote for me t-shirt or a cap saying how fantastic you are. So no campaigning in council chambers, council premise, please. Common sense, you would think, for stuff. But in my experience, when elections start, common sense tends to go out the window sometimes. Like is already happening in Wellington today, if you haven't already seen the news. So any piece of campaigning material, anything, hats, t-shirts, balloons, signs, cars, messages towed behind a plane in the sky, any piece of campaign material has to have an authorisation statement on the bottom of it. Authorised by candidate's name and address. At the moment, as of today, the current legislation, that says it has to be a physical address. Not a PO box, not a private bag, a physical street address. But the legislation is going through Parliament to change that at the moment, and I'm expecting it to be passed in the House today or tomorrow, come into effect on Friday, to loosen that up so that it can just be a contact details, phone number, email address, so that you don't have to have your private address flashed all over the campaign with all this privacy stuff going on. Makes sense, but and has been a subject of much debate, but hasn't got there yet. But hopefully, any minute. In the candidate handbook, it talks about that and gives us what it is now and what it's supposed to be after 1st July. And we'll let everybody know. But you still got to have that statement on the bottom of everything. Doesn't matter how big or small it is, has to be there, but big enough so that we can read it. If you're doing a radio ad, in the radio ad, it has to say authorised by your name or your agent's name. Doesn't have to be you, can be campaign manager can be an agent. Doesn't have to be a candidate. Just has to be a person, an actual person with their contact details. I'll show you some examples of this in a minute. And remember that the content of any signs and advertising is subject to the Advertising Standards Authority guidelines. Someone will complain about it. They have a process to deal with it. I'll do this real quick. I'll come back and complain with the person straight away. Remember, campaigning can say and do pretty much anything. Someone slags you off, calls you nasty names, too bad. Don't come complaining to me. I don't care. Okay. You'll be surprised the number of calls I get from people saying, someone's called me a nasty name, that's just not fair. Take a concrete pill, I don't know, life's not fair. Social media, pretty messy this stuff, as I said, thanks to Mr. Trump. But the key thing about social media, as far as the council is concerned, is the council's social media channels can't be used for campaigning or electioneering. Council social media channels are monitored, and any electioneering comments on there about candidates, about council, about the CE, all that sort of stuff in a political environment are removed. If someone was continuing to put stuff on, they would be blocked. Because council's social media audience, not your social media. There are a whole lot of things that you can be careful of with social media. So you can take council's posts about anything, send them to your audience, no problems. You can send them with a campaigning message or spin or comment on them as much as you like. Just don't want you to reply back to council's channel, council's post. Because that's council's post, not yours. Take it out, take it all away. No clip tagging, no rating or reviewing, no commenting back, no liking, all that sort of stuff. That'll all be blocked. Now the campaign is over. And remember, when you get your voting paper, tick your box, list your name, assuming you're voting for yourself. Don't take a photo of it and put it on Facebook. That is against the legislation. Pretty quickly you get a call. Offence against the act. So please don't go there. If you are going to do some Facebook advertising, then there is a process that you have to go through with Facebook to do that. You can do targeted ads in different locations. The cost for that, but you have to register with them as a politician. I'm not a guru on this stuff, but I understand the process is pretty easy, but you have to do that before you can do any advertising on Facebook. No. That's their word. It's just, I don't know how that works, but some process to go through. So all I'm saying to you is, don't try and blindly put some ads up on Facebook. You won't be able to. They'll zap them. You've got to go through a process. Signs. One of my favourite topics, signs. Look at the news tonight, you'll see why. There was a mayoral candidate in Wellington yesterday. Put up his electronic billboard, massive billboard, 2 or 3 of them around the city, in breach of these council rules as to when signs can go up. Not a good start. So please, don't put your hoarding signs, not physical or electronic, up until after Monday the 8th of August. recording sign up before then, I'll get the council to go and take it down. So it can be up to 2 months, can be on private land. That should be for 60 days, not 90 days, same period. There's rules around how many signs per site. NZTA rules, Waka Kotahi, are really anal about signs on state highways. They'll take no prisoners, they'll take no signs, they'll take them down and ask questions later. So be careful around where you put signs on a state highway. Remember, we'll talk about this in a minute, that you've got to record all your campaign expenditure that you spend. But the cost of the wood holding up your sign is not an election expense. Strange but true. Why would it matter? It's just part of the legislation.
Last year, blown down.
Yeah. That's right. No, it's not an expense, so don't scrimp on the expense. Put decent wood on it so it doesn't blow over. Fair comment. Yeah, so it doesn't matter about the cost of it. Strange but true. Any questions about that stuff? Maximum size. Every council's different. You have to check out what the hoardings policy is in the county handbook. I can't remember. Shaney, you might know. Can't remember. Nigel, do you remember? No. Every council's different, which is why I'm having problems with Wellington. So, as well as recording your expenditure, you have to record your donations that you get for your campaign. No matter when you get the donation. Someone gave you a donation a year ago and said, this is for your campaign, you've got to record that. You don't have to accept a donation. You can decline it because it's transparent. You have to record it. And a canned expenditure return, which goes on council's website for 7 years. Anyone will look at it, the media look at these things. Think about when you get a donation, do I actually want to receive that? There's been many elected members who have been caught out when they declare what they think is a innocuous donation from someone that turns out to be from a property developer or from someone who has an item that comes to council for consideration later on, for which they then can't partake in the discussion at the council table because they've got a conflict. So be careful about that. Don't have to accept a donation. Just the same as you can't accept a donation if someone says to you, here's $1,000, but it's anonymous. It's not anonymous if you know who it is. You can't do the Mr.com thing and say, here's an anonymous donation. It's not anonymous if you know who it is, or you can reasonably work it out. Someone put $1,000 in your bank account, you can check, you can see on the bank account the name. You have to record it. Can you get an anonymous donation? I don't know how you could these days. Paper bag in the front door in the middle of the night, an unmarked car, suit too fast for you chasing down the street, maybe, cash. Perhaps, that's the only way. And even then, if it's over $1,500, you've got to give any of it that's over $1,500 to the council. And no one will want to do that. A whole lot of rules around donations. It gets really messy. The same as having auctions for pieces of art or cricket bats or those sorts of things. If you do that, if you auctioned off your famous cricket bat, a couple of $1,000, that's actually a donation. They have to record the market rate and what it is, what it went for. Be careful around crowdfunding. Give a little, like careful about that because you have to declare everyone who has given money for tickets as a donation. Who's going to do that? So that means you have to make everyone aware that if they purchase a raffle ticket, your name's going to be on your donation. You want to go? Okay. It really sort of depends on what the value of the item is. So if you've got questions about that, come and see me about it. It can get really tricky. So you've all got expenditure limits that you're able to spend up to in each election, depending on the population, so they're different in every election. The maximum amount, including GST. Can't go over it. If you do, it's an offence, be reported to the police. I'll do something about it. Can't aggregate them up if you're standing in two positions. It's the higher limit required. If you're standing for the mayor and the Māori ward, not 37, it's 30. If you're standing for the mayor and a ward, it's the mayor's limit, the higher one, not cumulative. Okay? So the time for which you have to record your expenses, this is getting into the weeds of this stuff, that's quite nitty-gritty, really prescriptive, tad painful. You have to record your expenditure that you spend on your campaign for activity that occurs between the 8th of July and the 8th of October. You could put a flash full-page ad in the Taupo Times on the 7th of July, outside 3 months, not part of the campaign. Actually, Taupo Times is not a good case. Is the Taupo Times weekly or daily? Weekly? So you want to do it so that it's the week before. Because if the period of the paper goes over, past the 8th of July, you have to record it. So if you put it in the Waikato Times, being a daily, life cycle of 1 day on the 7th, sweet, no problem. If you put it in the Taupo Times on the 7th, I would argue 7th to the 14th, 6 days of it, 6/7 of the cost, you have to do a pro rata from that. It gets messy. So that's the key thing. It doesn't matter when you pay for it, when the activity occurs. When it occurs, it's highly within the parameter of your cost. If the activity occurs some before, some after, then you pro rata. You got your car sign written a few weeks back, and I've been driving around for a few weeks, from the 8th of June, for example, 4 months, cost you $1,000 to get the car sign written. You're driving for 4 months, 3 months, for the period, people are $750 pro rata. They can't have an authorisation on it. That's how it works. Remember, it's not about when you pay for it, it's when the activity occurs. So you can organise all your billboards now, put them up after the 8th of August, all of the cost of those goes in. Okay? Clear as mud? Set out in the candidate handbook. There's a few offences you have to be aware of. What's treating? You can't meet someone down at a local cafe and go, my shout, if you vote for me. Can't go to the pub with your mates and say, my round, I'll get this. If you vote for me. That's treating. It's the act. Strangely, we hear about this all the time. Someone overhears it. Against the Act. Someone made an official complaint, I'd have to pass it to the police. We don't want to go. So that's what treating is. You can have a campaign meeting, candidate meeting in a hall, people to come and hear how fantastic you are. You start your campaign, no problem. You can provide tea and bickies, all good. Not treating, can't provide alcohol. Alcohol has a value. It's treating. Strange but true. I won't want you to give away a pen, pad, fridge magnet, an item of value to give to someone to say, yeah, you can have a pen if you vote me. That's bribery against the Act. So be careful of that. I think a few calls for people saying, what's undue influence? Undue influence is not telling someone in the room how they should vote. It's standing over them in the act of voting, saying, like that. Actually, that's what undue influence is under the Act. Any questions about that? There's a good sign and a bad sign. One on the left, quite common, no problems. But you can't have the names of the people that are standing against you and nothing next to their name or a cross next to their name. That, in the eyes of the law, looks like an imitation voting paper, and you're instructing people how to vote is an offence under the Act. Will get reported to the police. I've had this happen before where some guy did this and got prosecuted. Plus all the stuff on the front page of the paper. Didn't help the campaign too much. So be careful about that. Just you, yourself as a candidate, or if you're running as a team of candidates, your own team of candidates, not anyone else. You could run as you could run as 3 people as a team, saying Team Taupo or something. You could have all your photos, all your circles with different names. That's good, because you're on the same group. Just going to give a few slides of interesting campaign photos from last time. That's the mayor of Triangle, mayor of Horowhenua. Sign written car. Got an authorisation on the back of it. But park in the council car park right outside the front of the council park. No, it's nothing. So yep, remove it, don't park it. Don't have it up the road. Put it in the car park for anyone to park. Council resource right outside the council building. Nor could you put council logo on it. Okay. You campaigning on a Tina with a chainsaw, slash the race. And yes, you got elected. That one, Brady, Hutt City, sign of a man holding a sign. Life-size sign of him holding a sign. You might remember this one from Tauranga last time. Do my best, but I can't promise anything. It was not a candidate, it was just some guy who decided to put up a billboard for art. Went viral, all over the news, quite a big deal. but quite entertaining. And the council let it stay there for the 3 weeks because they thought it was such good fun. But, no problems. Do my best, but I can't promise anything. And then on the first day of voting in Levin, Horowhenua, again, my mate Michael was wrong, in a park, Foxton actually, very first day. Didn't help the mood. Council were very quick, go and take it down. Yeah. What do people do? People got too much time. All right, we're getting near the end. Lecture rolls is just some compliance stuff. We do produce 2 sets of lecture rolls. One's called the prelim roll, which comes out in a couple of weeks, and then the final roll, which we get to see the voting papers out to. You can buy a copy of the roll. Can't get it electronically, has to be a hard copy. That is what it is. But people have got a month, same period as the nomination period, to update the details. So if you recently moved, you haven't updated your details on the electoral roll, you can do it online. Roll for the first time. Roll, do it online, no problem. Special votes, don't need to know too much about these, but you lose your voting paper, dog eats it, the kids throw it out, chuck it in the fire. If you want to vote, you can come into the council office and get a special vote. It's on the form to do so, but it's not that big a drama. You can do it over the phone or we'll post it out. But it's a physical form. The most common reason is if you move address and have a change of address and electoral roll and go to your old address, you can pick up that. Not a big deal, but just take a little bit of time. And then election results, which we'll produce on election day, 8th of October. We'll probably have those results out by 2 to 3 o'clock. They'll include all of the votes that have been received in the postal system up until Friday night. It won't include the voting papers that are hand delivered to the council building, the libraries and the offices and any other places on the Saturday morning, which will be the 300, and we'll go from there. The council will then arrange to contact each of the candidates. And we have the prelim result, KSO, and then the final result 4 days later. What happens if the result's close? Close is close. Happens a bit. Can ask for a recount. You have to go to the court to do that. Process to go through, and you have to convince the judge as to why you think there should be a recount. Last time we had 2 recount applications. One for an election in Queenstown, where the margin was 1. And one, you may remember, for the Wellington City Council election, where there was a margin of 60 votes over 67,000 voting papers. One in Queenstown, the judge did grant it because 1 was 1, and it ended up being tied. And because sometimes the reason why votes change will be when we process the votes, our system is audited, otherwise there's a whole lot of checking that goes on. But if there's a voting paper where the intention of the person sometimes isn't clear, they might have picked it, crossed it out, put a cross next to it, or done something that the intention isn't that clear, then I'll make a decision as to what I think of the vote, and the judge will look at that and sometimes determine different. And that's when you might get a change of 1 or 2. Lucky if you're going to get a change of 4 or 5, you might get 1. And that's what happened in Queenstown. Then became tied, the election officer then had toss call, which he did on national TV with it has happened. But in Wellington, the judge, after a whole lot of deliberation and reports provided by me, and responses from the candidates, determined that the margin was not close enough to warrant having a recount. The judge, it's not necessarily about closeness, it's about whether a person can make a case as to why the result might change. And close is not necessarily a reason. Anyway, this is what it is. Cost to do a recount application of $150 plus GST. Then when you come into office, once I've produced the result, the CE then calls the inaugural meeting of council. It's quite a ceremony, and it's quite a big deal. Friends and family come along. It's called the swearing in process, and it happens at a council meeting. And then the council starts, and away it goes. And here are the documents and the resources that we've got. Check out the website, the council website. Check out documents over here. Check out the regional council's website as well, their election. LGNZ have got LGNZ as Local Government New Zealand have a good booklet on their website, but most of it's in the handbook. So that's most of the stuff, pretty much all the stuff about my slides. What's time? How are we going? Good, just about 50 minutes. Any questions on that stuff before I pass over to Dave from the Regional Council for a few slides? Not many, but a few. Are you standing again? Then probably not. That's right. If you don't put a political spin on it and just say the workload's involved, that's okay. Yep. Okay. Yep, no, there you go.
Ensures a very rewarding, challenging job. Expectation out of the community. What I find is if you get elected, it's a real process of listening to staff, pre-reading, long-term planning, and things like what's just pointed out there, and delivering. It's a real learning process the first 3 years, frankly. It's very rewarding, so I encourage everybody to put their name forward. So notwithstanding where I go, I encourage people to stand outside, so good on putting their name forward. So like I say, it's a very, very, we're living in a great district, so it's really rewarding to see people putting their hands up to contribute to some of the decision making in the community.
The slides that I had up about how much work's involved and time involved, do you agree with all that?
Yeah, absolutely. So okay. It's probably made about monitoring. I mean, it's with the it's very we have a very cohesive council and accountability is done for self-monitoring. It's not just these when you go to the meeting, monthly meeting. We've done 2 or 3 workshops with staff. We have legal inspectors on it. So as we go to the meeting, it's very, very collaborative process. Working together to achieve the same result. See what happens to other councils. See Carolyn,
Yeah.
the commissioner.
Yeah.
So you have to go there with a good vision, but realistically, it's just make the place in place. You're not going to get it right every time, but as you say, do your best. I wish you well.
Okay, thank you. Cheers. All right, Dave, you know, battle through slides for the Waikato Regional Council, and then I'll do a quick wrap up at the end.
Right, I'm not going to take too long here. My name's Dave, as Warwick said. I'm from Regional Council. I'm based in Hamilton, which is our centre of operations. So, the two councils, District Council and Regional Council, we complement each other in what we do. We don't compete with each other and we don't answer to each other. So while your District Council provides roads and pipes and things like that, we tend to focus on things like civil defence matters, biosecurity, flood protection, environment. That's just that sort of stuff. Water consents, things like that. The area that regional council covers is very large. We are from the Bombays down to Mokau and almost coast to coast from all of Coromandel right across through the Ruapehu National Park and to Mokau. So the national park's almost cut in half. Inside our catchment there's 11 district and 10 district and 1 city council, obviously, which is Hamilton. And we have a total of 14 councillors. 12 of those we elect from the general ward, and we have 2 elected from the Maori ward. Unlike your district council, we don't have a mayor, and the chair is not elected by the voters. So once council convenes and all of the new councillors assemble, they will appoint a chair to represent them. And the reason really for that is that if you had a voting pool from the Waikato that appointed your chair, it would always be a Hamilton councillor, because Hamilton's got that big population base, whereas this gives the opportunity for the other members from the smaller districts and regions to have that opportunity. Time commitment's very similar. The chair is a full-time role, and councillor varies between 20-25 hours a week is what tends to be the accepted norm. The remuneration's up on the screen there. It's a little bit different. The base salary for the councillor is 64. A committee chair is somebody that chairs one of the committees, and then we've got a deputy chair and of course the chair, which is the full-time role. I told you I was going to keep it brief. If you want more information, see me afterwards and I'll send you the candidate handbook and whatnot. You can give the council a call. There's 3 of us looking after the election. There's myself, I'm Dave. Our electoral officer is Marley Apeni, and James Winston is the deputy. And that's about it. Has anyone got any questions? Easy, huh? Whistle through it.
Well done. All right. That's us. No online voting. Love to. Council's the only election I do that doesn't have online voting. Don't ask me why. Long story. But it is what it is. So, there you go. I've done my bit. Happy to take questions. You want to come and see me afterwards? No problem. If you've got any questions now, then please sing out. I appreciate your time coming out. I think my count is 19 people here. 3 years ago we had 7. That's any indication. Might be in for a good election. But it is what it is. So thank you for coming along, and good luck.